This portion of Colliding Worlds is brought to you by Daniel James Ryan Photography.
Hi, this is Angela Valentrumeo. This is Colliding Worlds. We're going to meet Bill Anson. We're going to look at an amazing body of work, and I find it difficult to believe that one human being could create so much beauty. Welcome. Thank you so much for sitting with Colliding Worlds.
Well, I'm happy to have you here.
Bill, the work here is breathtaking. You've worked, what don't you work in? Ceramics, wood, metal, what don't you work in?
Not uranium and plutonium.
Damn, I was gonna ask, what made you think of all of these things?
Well, to be very honest, the cladding, first of all, is a very old technique. They used to take pieces of gold and beat them, and then they'd nail them onto masts or whatever for ceremonial things. You don't find much because the wood is rotted away now, but you find little nails that they use, little copper nails or whatever. It's really a way of creating a metallic piece without casting. And the reason I started it is because to cast a full figure would cost many, many thousands of dollars. The reason that I started working in the copper cladding was really because I was looking for a metallic surface without casting. And this isn't unique. I'm not the first one that's ever done this. I haven't seen anybody that's done figurative work, so that part may be a little different. But basically what I do is take little pieces of copper, put them as shingles, and then nail them with bronze nails. It lasts a long time, but it's not as expensive, and you don't need all the other facilities that you need when you have to cast.
Casting
so that's basically the history of that.
And you've been creating artwork for a while now.
For a long time.
Do you ever find yourself bored?
That's a good question. Only momentarily. What I usually do is when I'm working on something, work on a whole series of similar pieces at once. Maybe I'll make 5 or 6 that are basically the same thought process and so forth, then move on to something else. That's a way of, maybe I was going to say a way of not getting bored. I'm not sure that that's the case, but you work on 5 or 6 pieces, you set them aside, and then you go on to something else. I've always liked to do a variety of things, and maybe that's not the best way of doing it. Maybe for an art career, you should just do one thing. You know, like you should just do painting, or you should just do a sculpture. You know, did Rembrandt do?
He was kind of all over, you know. Look at Da Vinci. Look what Da Vinci did. Did he say?
You look at Picasso, and he did some sculpture, and he did this, and he did that. He was maybe, I don't know if you can say he was the first one that had a variety of techniques that he wasn't mocked for, or maybe he was mocked at the time, but they were saying if you're going to be an artist, you shouldn't do this because it doesn't look like art and so forth. But
I've always found it interesting, Picasso is classically trained.
You know, he got away with a lot that maybe other artists couldn't have gotten away with because of his reputation, because he had a lot of nerve.
But you've had a lot of nerve because you've been creating art kind of on your own terms for a while now, and you've been successful at it.
On your own terms is pretty much the case, but you know, you got to sell. The question is, if you don't sell, you know, are you an artist? Well, you could put it in the closet and stack it up, and some people have done that. There's this potter, and I can't think of his name. He never sold a piece while he was alive. And his son or his grandson found this trove of hundreds or maybe thousands of pieces. And they said, oh, he's a great potter and it's selling for a fantastic amount. Well, when he was alive, I guess he wasn't an artist. Nobody knew he was doing it. I don't know.
That's kind of a question.
He didn't get any satisfaction, and he didn't get any of the feedback.
I mean, you've been known as a sculptor. and your work is collected, your work has been in public places. Did you have to develop a thick skin?
Well, I was going to say that you need a reasonably thick skin because not everybody's going to like what you do, and if they do, something is wrong.
Why?
It's like somebody that says if you don't have a big telephone bill, you're not calling enough people and doing enough advertising and so forth. So,
well, I guess that would be the equivalent of having 5 million friends on Facebook and knowing 3.
if everybody likes what you do, then it's bad. There's something wrong there. It must be too syrupy, or
Too middle of the road?
Or maybe it's too derivative. I don't know.
Your work is not derivative, even of itself.
Well,
there's a voice that's clearly yours. But
I would hope so. But the truth is that you can't help but be influenced by everything you've seen artistically and not artistically before. Again, getting back to Picasso, he says he visits the studios of his friends to steal ideas that he... But he might steal them, and he takes them to a different level.
Whose work did you look at or feel inspired by?
Well, you know, I am so impressed by Frank Gehry that I can hardly control myself. And he's not nominally an artist. He's nominally an architect, but he's really a sculptor. And talk about putting yourself out for criticism and so forth. I'm sure that they laughed at his first designs. Well, I know they did. The first thing that he did of any consequence, I think, was his own home, and he clad it in chain link fence to something. I've never seen it, so I don't know how he did it, but he did it, and he got away with it, and it turned out very well, evidently, and that was probably the start of his recognition, because they say, chain link fence, how can you do this? Well, he did it, and he went on to there, and from there, and he's certainly not doing chain link fence anymore. But again, he's using materials in a way that nobody's ever done it before.
Cardboard. He was into cardboard.
Oh, his cardboard furniture is so good.
I'm fortunate to own one of the wine racks.
Really?
And I find interesting because it's cardboard.
It's amazing. Again, they say, what are you doing that for? It's just cardboard, you know? And yet he's made there's a whole new concept there of how you use materials and what the materials can do.
When you were a child, were you the one playing with the Lincoln logs and the erector sets? And
I had an erector set when I was a child. I had the big one, you know, it comes in different. You have a little one, then you have a big one in a metal case. And I had the big one. And I guess that was the thing that set me down this awful path that I've come. Because I really like building things, and that's the way it started. The first classes I ever took was at the Art Institute of Chicago, the kiddie classes, and I took sculpture classes. And at the time I certainly didn't, well, of course when you're 9 years old you didn't take something because you intend to be a sculptor. Unless it runs in the family or something of the sort. But
well, did your parents look at you and go, "Oh,
my
why can't you be an architect?"
Didn't have a clue about an artist. You either were a doctor, or you know, if you really couldn't cut it as a doctor, maybe a lawyer.
You were a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant.
Yeah, and I decided I wasn't going to be a doctor because I just can't handle the blood and guts part of it and so forth. And as far as being a lawyer, I don't have that kind of a memory. So here I am, I'm an artist.
Well, you were bucking the trend, and did you feel that you didn't have the support when you were younger and starting out?
I didn't have anything negative. My parents were certainly supportive, but they didn't have a clue about being an artist. It was as if I said I wanted to, I don't know.
Walk on Mars.
To go to Mars. Yeah, they said, oh, well, that sounds like a nice idea, Bill.
Well, how did they feel when you started selling your work, when you started getting recognition?
Well, this goes back to if you don't sell, are you an artist type of thing. if you don't expose it to the public. I felt good about it because I like making money from it. It's a demonstration of appreciation and recognition by the people that are buying it. That's a reasonable thing.
Have you ever made a piece and you just looked back at it and stood away from it and said, God, I did this? Did you ever surprise yourself?
Yeah, sometimes I did this or I did this.
Oh no!
Oh no, yeah. Yeah, usually it comes as a surprise to a certain extent after a while when you look at it again. I've seen pieces that I did years later and I said, did I do that? I'm not sure whether I did that or not. And I said, well, maybe I haven't come so far because I think that was pretty good. That's one of the things when you're working in the desert or in one place for a long time, you come on your old friends kind of unexpectedly. I've run into pieces that I had forgotten that I did, to tell you the truth.
Because your work is so prolific, do you ever try to recreate the same thing again and again?
Well, you try not to repeat yourself. But that's always a problem because sometimes you're copying yourself unconsciously or subconsciously. And is it bad? I don't know. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe you'll come up with something different in the end. I don't know.
Have you ever met that material that no matter what you tried or how you did it, it just wouldn't work for you? You know, like for me, it's steel. I love steel, but it just doesn't lend itself to jewelry.
Well, you know, there's an economic thing going on. Some materials have gotten really, really expensive. Mm-hmm. The world has changed in 4 or 5 years, the world has changed as far as the price of some materials. And you really have to want to use them and be able to realize a profit from them, or at least break even if you're going to use them. Copper, of course, is the one that comes to mind first of all, but steel, Corten steel, the steel that rusts, is gotten quite expensive, relatively speaking.
What are you working on now? Is there?
Well, I had 3 steel pieces that I had up on pylons, and I've moved them, and I've made them so that they sit on the floor now. Again, here we go. Am I compromising because I didn't think that I could sell them to work on pylons very easily, because how many people want to put a pylon in the ground and so forth and so on. It's a lot easier for them to put something on the floor, either inside or outside. Mm-hmm. So that very honestly is what happened to these people, these 3 pieces that were on pylon. They're back home sitting in the backyard, and I'll bring them down here one of these days. So.
Are you going to work more in steel, do you think, now, or will you go back to clay, or is there, where do you, if you were going to sit in your studio tomorrow, what are you going to work on?
Oh, you say if I walked in tomorrow and I didn't have anything planned, what would I work on? That's a nice question. If I could work on anything, I'd make a really big steel welded piece. But to make a big steel welded piece, you need a big area and you need sort of cranes and things like that to hold it. I have only been able to make pieces that have maybe been 6 or 8 feet at the largest. So I'd like to make something that's 30 feet tall and so forth.
The proportions and the angles and the math.
Well, that Picasso piece in Chicago, in front of this, is it City Hall or County Building or something? It's a stylized woman's face. You've probably seen it in books.
I think it's the county building. It's the Cook County building, I think.
That's big. I don't know if I want to make it that big, but I admire something on that scale. There's also a piece that they used in an advertisement that I saw in New York. I don't know if it's in front of the Seagram's building, but it was sort of like a big spider almost. A beautiful piece, so I sort of have been inspired by those big pieces, and I'd like to do it, but unless I can come upon a fabrication shop, I won't be doing it.
I think it's great, and I really thank you for sitting with us today.
Right. And that's it.
And that's it.
Wrap it up.
It's a wrap.
Now you can catch your favorite episodes of Colliding Worlds on collidingworldstvandart.com. Listen to your favorite artists live. Tune into Money Radio 1200 AM every Saturday at 11 a.m. to noon.